Okay, that's the air conditioner, actually.
Can you hear my waterfall?
No.
I don't hear that either.
Okay. Hello, everybody. Welcome to Bill and Ammon's Bogus Hangout. Uh, we've got Ammon isn't here yet, but we do have Doc Sheldon and Terry Van Horn. Doc, you want to say hello? And
Hello, everybody.
I've got to get rid of time loop.
I don't know what Terry's putting up with there, but Bill and I are either getting rained on or getting ready to get rained on out here on the West Coast.
Oh, it looks like rain every day here lately. So the summer's been pretty bad.
I'm sure the folks in UK are enjoying a hot sunny day.
Yeah.
Or on BBC Two, maybe.
So, Terry, how have you been? What were you up to?
Oh, not too much this week. Taking it pretty easy. Looked at a few things. Found out that Ajax is just a waste of time. Oh, man. A friend of mine built their whole site on Ajax.
Ooh.
Yeah. I mean, it really looks cool and, everything like that, but Google didn't index a single page. Or, well, it indexed some pages, but all the links, everything just links to login pages. So I had to give them a bit of an audit and some recommendations, like basically build an HTML sitemap and link to some HTML hubs and add a link that Google can find those other pages. And you have to also, and I think webmasters just aren't like old school guys like us, right? When I see JavaScript, I think, okay, what browsers can use it, blah, blah, blah. Nowadays, they just assume everybody has it turned on and, it's no problem using it. They don't test for it. They don't do anything for it. It's like it's all going to be turned on no matter what. So they have no redundancy or anything like that built in.
What kind of load time did they have? It was all Ajax.
I'm sorry?
I say if it was all Ajax, what was their page load speed like?
Oh, it was pretty fast.
Was it? Mm-hmm.
Yeah, because the Ajax was in the code, but it had to be executed.
It had to render a DOM.
Right. Yeah. So when you executed it, that's when it rendered. And so, there's nothing for Google to index.
Yeah.
Right? Because that's invisible. The thing I did not test was I don't even think that prints. So if you print the page, I doubt it prints the Ajax pop-up, right?
Good question.
So it reminds me of 10 years ago trying to index Flash pages.
Right. It's kind of the same deal. And basically the same workarounds, right? You make an HTML part of your site too for the search engine.
Hi, Fab.
Hello. Hi. Actually, I was listening to you guys in the meantime. I was eating something on YouTube, and on that point, like even John Mueller recently said that JavaScript is not going anywhere, and get used to it. But at the same time, we had one instance where like the same thing could have been built in plain HTML and give a better and faster experience for the user. So it's like I understand that in some cases it's good to embrace, like it was like a simple something like a 4x5 table, right? And someone built a single page application in JavaScript to do that versus proper static HTML pages. And like sometimes it's good, and it's good to. There's a lot of cool stuff that is coming up, and things like even on Progressive Web App, there's some cool stuff coming up, but not every time. Jumping on the flashy new stuff is the best thing for user. And at the same time, we were getting it right. So we were pre-rendering that JavaScript, and Google has indexed that properly. But the day we removed it, it was much better. Like for users, for Google as well, performance in search like triple, like double. I don't know. So it was a question of like, what should you do?
And then to top it all off, they had infinite scrolling on the page.
Oh, great.
So all the links were Ajax and it had infinite scrolling as well. I just kind of said, oh, gee, but it's too bad they couldn't put a huge video at the top. That would just, finish the job. But it's okay. Really a cool looking site. Just you didn't need to get search engine. It was a great site. It still is. It just needs to be workarounds for search engines.
Yeah, especially because in some countries with slow connection and everything, basically with AMP, you're going down the path of going back to basics in some cases, but at the same time, I get that Google is probably way smarter in getting JavaScript, but some stuff, I don't know, I'm not sure it always makes sense to have it. There are some cases where I've seen a few things being done well, and as you say, it's fast as well. It's not necessarily that slow, but yeah, it's difficult to get everything right. Being very beautiful, user-friendly, fast loading, everything in one.
Yeah, I just figured, a problem for search engines. That's probably the only scripting language. When I saw it, I didn't at least try and make at least one application. I looked at this and said, what would I use it for?
Mm-hmm.
Unless you were going to make something on an intranet that, you didn't have to worry about different, it was basically a closed environment, then it's cool. But, other than that, on the internet, those things don't work because you never know what's going to show up.
Yeah. It's good sometimes it's difficult sometimes to pick a fight on, how many browsers are you probably gonna take care of? How many engines as well, right? We sometimes our design team. Huh?
Is there more than one?
No, in terms of search engines, I get the point, right? But
I haven't thought about the other two much, and probably over a decade.
Which other two?
Bing and which other?
Yeah, InfoSeek and Alta Vista.
Yeah, no, probably is more browsers than search engines and even for instance, most of the stuff that our design team builds, it looks amazing on a Retina Mac with Chrome, but then if you go on a low definition screen on Internet Explorer, it's probably most of those animation and things. I don't know. Sometimes you need to pick a fight, and it's difficult to understand how much you have data, right, to base this assumption upon. But you always skew your view based on what you use, what you think your user would use. But we probably giving not such an amazing experience to some type of users.
So do you guys optimize it all for Bing?
No.
No.
Well, to be honest, no. We do have a Bing webmaster tool. I open it today, but even that we don't make a strong use of it. For instance, we pull a lot of webmaster tool data, Google, Search Console through API. Bing we don't, so we end up not checking that data that frequently. But even so, we haven't seen much going on there. But neither we paid attention. That's probably a both way type of thing, right? We don't know, but at the same time we haven't worked on it that much.
Okay, in the past, I always felt that if you did your on-page optimization for Google, you were pretty well covered on Bing and Yahoo. However,
and even Yandex.
Pardon me?
And even Yandex, if you're playing in that part.
Well, I don't even look that far down. I mean, like, to me, I'm not in Russia, so why would I care?
Well, they're well beyond Russia now, but.
Oh, okay. Well, last I heard, that's what they were still just Russia.
It's Russia, Turkey, few countries. It depends. Yeah.
One thing I have noticed is that since I started optimizing for the new Google on entities and stuff, the Bing and Microsoft, Bing and Yahoo, down the tubes, man.
Oh, really?
Don't rate as well as it used to.
Interesting.
Yeah, I've been including some Bing stuff in audits, like what site links are showing, what knowledge panels are showing. If they return an entity API search result for a business.
Can I ask you something then, Bill?
Sure.
Would you say it's as entity dependent as Google is?
I would say it is.
Ah, interesting. Then why don't we rank there as well?
What I've seen that it, like, especially on search results, it looks like it's more still keyword heavy on some stuff, even like titles, description. I don't know, like it's like very top line feeling. I haven't really dig enough. Recently, what we implemented was meta language tag, just because they don't support hreflang, so we reshuffled some of the hreflang stuff. So that's the only thing that we did, but without yet. Like we do stuff if it makes sense to roll it out, but we tend not even to spend time to analyze if that is really like, so meta language tag, we scale them in the same way we scale hreflang, so it's like a line of code and it's fine. But other stuff, no, we don't do anything on purpose for.
The Bing entity API search is 3-4 weeks old, and it handles JSON LD stuff. But I don't think Bing was using JSON LD for their knowledge panels or so on before. They might be now.
Is it Bill? Is it the one under Azure subdomain? Azure Microsoft blah blah blah.
The entity API search, yes.
Yeah. Okay. Cool. Yeah.
Azure is very cool. All my stuff's on Azure now, except for 2 sites. WordPress actually runs better on Azure than it does on Unix.
I was reading, I'm very uninformed on the subject, but I was reading some stuff around how in the cloud fight, with Amazon being dominant and Google picking up and blah, 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 how Azure has been doing some relatively cool stuff. I mean, they invested quite a bit on there, right? And
it's a nice environment, especially if you're running an app. Like they have some really nice stuff for apps. And you can position all over the world with them.
So Google's philosophy was to make AI type stuff free for people using their cloud?
Yeah, they're doing something. They're doing something on this front. I was watching but I don't remember the detail.
Yeah.
Was Jeff Dean mentioning something around that no? Them giving cloud infrastructure for AI stuff, right? Similar to how they open up a TensorFlow, right?
Right. They made TensorFlow for the cloud software that people using their cloud services could use for free.
Well, there's actually if you go to the search section of that API, they have auto-suggest API.
For Bing?
Yeah, the entity search, custom search, Bing video, image API. Yeah, that returns JSON as well. That's what I was looking at. Well, it's quite a lot, actually. But the thing is, like, it's probably down to the fact that you publish a site and you start working on something, and then you see what you do picking up in Google. There's a good correlation between what you do and what picks up in Google, at least if you do it right? But you don't see the same correlation in Bing. It could be a matter of, like, volume. It could be, I don't know, but then you end up not prioritizing to the point where even this cool stuff that you could look into, you don't use it, right? And
right, to get some knowledge panels in Google, you need to verify your site in Google My Business, which doesn't do anything for Bing.
mm-hmm.
So that would be a good reason to sign up on Bing as well.
There's no way to. I'm not sure that verifying in Bing makes a difference for those.
There is some kind of linking to profiles in the Webmaster Console in Bing. I just looked at it earlier. You can link to, when you go to configure my site, you can verify the ownership bit. Well, this is the normal verification, but then there is a thing called connected pages, where you can pick between Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, Google+, Google Play Store, blah, 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 blah. I'm not sure whether this has got any. And then they show you some click from search. I guess this is some kind of knowledge panel API, I believe. The knowledge panel results.
Last I looked at and ran search for Google API and Bing Entity API, I only got a Bing Entity API. There were knowledge panels for both, but you don't always get a result for the API searches for those. Now, it makes me wonder how tied together they are, what they're reading, if it's not the schema on the website.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Well, Bing only does LD, doesn't it?
They hadn't been.
Oh, okay.
They hadn't been paying attention to JSON LD.
Okay. But they do look at the schema stuff marked up on a page.
The metadata, yeah. So when they came out with the Bing Entity API and it said that it did JSON LD, that was a surprise. A pleasant one.
Right.
It was good to see that they were looking at that.
Oh, okay. That I was misguided in my thinking then. I didn't think that they could read schema markup on a website.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, they've been looking at schema for a long time. You're saying it's been a couple, 3 weeks ago they started with the LD?
3-4 weeks ago, yeah.
I wasn't even aware of that.
But if you go to the section where they talk about marking up the content with structured data, they talk about other formats as well, as in, but probably. Oh yeah, it was microdata, microformats, RDF, not JSON. Yeah. Interesting, but like one thing that I realize is that how much skewed is by, so even the fact that like I don't know, I'm based in UK, and I realized this when they're forcing us to use some VPN with IP in Germany, and that is an eye opener in terms of like search result. You know, you tend to Google in the country where you are, right, with the IP where you are, and that's where you get a sense of search results and SERP. But the more I've been like forced to and being either when you're traveling or either when you're on other IPs, it's good to have a sense of, especially if you're working on sites that are not just in one country, to get a good sense of like regional differences around like results and it's the same thing with engines, right? If you always use Google, you're less keen to knowing that for this type of results in Bing, you might be doing terribly well or terribly bad. Right? Well, you can run, you can run all the tools that you want, but there's part of it which is just you using the engine as well.
Which is why I've been adding Bing and Google stuff to my audits. I wasn't including the Bing stuff, but I said I've got to look at this and pay attention to what's going on that's similar or different. I think maybe I need to start looking at the Apple Maps stuff too. And include that in the audit. Compare that to what Google Maps are showing for places.
In US, I guess it's not necessarily a US thing, but like, where is Apple Map usage compared to Google in terms of percentages, top line? Like,
it's supposedly used by a lot of people with iPhones.
Yeah, well, I believe so, right?
And there are more people using phones than desktop computers these days.
Yeah. Apple Map.
So I don't know the actual percentage, but it's a lot.
Maps market share. Oh, this is API data. Yeah, but definitely I've seen 2016 survey. Yeah, but this is preferred, is not actual data. 78% of the people preferring 70% of the people preferring Google Maps to.
Yeah, but that could be just the search engine that they're on. They kind of coincide, don't they?
Well, no, like this is comparing iPhone user versus Android users.
Oh, okay, that would be fun.
Yeah. Is specifically to map. So, but this is a survey. It's not actual data. It's just the first thing that I could Google, and it's also 1 year old.
Well, the thing that always amazes me, right, is when you read these pieces that say, Google gets X percentage of search and Bing gets X and Yahoo gets forgotten about. It don't make sense to me because when I look at actual websites, it's not even close. It's more like 95% of the search engine stuff is Google, and 5% is.
You're talking about looking at the analytics for the site.
Yes, looking at the actual channels, right? Because I tend to look at very overview stuff and Google Analytics, like top 10 pages, landing pages, exit pages. Then I look at my channels.
So the places are talking about what percentage of search goes to each search engine, or panel type sites, or ISP traffic information.
I think Terry's mentioning just his Google Analytics, right?
Right. Terry is distinguishing.
Yeah, I'm saying what I see in Google Analytics doesn't come close to what the measurements they get from ISPs and other stuff.
Yeah.
Because I think Bing and Yahoo inflate their scores, have for years. By 2 to 3 times was the last, and it's been a long time since I read, but last I saw it was 3 times as much for what was Bing called then. I don't know, one of the iterations of what became Bing.
Was it live? No.
Yeah, live search, and they've given it a bunch of names and then decide they need to give it the goofiest name they could think of, Bing. And, I never got that one,
This one is...
Well, by the same token, Google isn't exactly a common term pre-Google,
Yeah.
Yeah, but it was one that no one had heard of before. I mean, I'd never heard of that word before Google, yet Bing is a type of cherry, and that's what I think of first when I hear Bing or Bingo. In fact, I would have rather had it called Bingo than Bing. Bingo, I got what I wanted, but you don't get that much on.
That might be wishful thinking.
My brother's over here shaking a fist at me, probably.
I'm checking on this net market share website, and they're saying that, well, this is a global stat. Probably has to be, you need to go down by region to get a good sense.
Oh, they're really breaking it down now then.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I imagine in Russia it's probably different than it is in the US, Canada, or even Europe.
So
I would imagine that in Russia, Yandex is probably pushing at least 90%.
It's probably less, I would say.
There's another search engine that's based in Eastern Europe, but I can't remember their name now. But they're last I saw, I think they were getting like 5 or 6%.
Well, there is a Cessna. There's a one in Czech Republic, which is quite dominating that market. I think these sites are more like more like the Yahoo of the same reason why Yahoo in Japan still got a fair market share, is people getting used to reading the news there. It's more like a directory news portal than an actual engine. Well, it's got some engine functionality capability.
Wonder how many people read or visit, use Baidu on a regular basis. I know both Google and Yahoo tried to break into South Korea and couldn't get past Naver.
Yeah, it's like that site is. We had one. I was working on one like fashion site that they were selling quite good in Korea. They even opened a local shop, and going, like, we were getting a bit of traffic from Naver, but it was so difficult to get any. But they're still doing a good job.
You've got to write it. Naver is really good with user-generated content because there were so few sites for them to point to people to provide links to. They just started letting people write stuff themselves. And they were returning the UGC stuff.
Yeah. Well, same reason why I think in Beidou, most of the like traffic stays within their Wikipedia type platform, their community forum, Yahoo Answer type of platform. There's a lot of traffic that stays within Beidou, which is like some kind of not necessarily sending it out to other engines. Yeah, there's this bike thing, which I assume is a Wikipedia. And then there is Who, which is like a answer type of box. Interesting. That's why, like, it's quite challenging to, changing. Like, we haven't gone to the point where we need to heavily work on anything but countries that are dominated by Google. But the day it happens, we'll probably have to prep so much more in advance, because right now we can easily scale what we do in one country globally with differences and so on. But the day you start going into, and they did work on it a bit in the past, on top of the language barrier of like me not being able to read, but like the way you may get traffic there is so different, right? And it requires a lot of. Bill, have you worked on any kind of international client in China or anything like this, or not?
No, I really haven't. I've worked with a few sites in Europe, but no China, no Russia.
The thing that I find most challenging is that I don't speak German, for instance, but I can still read, right? The alphabet.
Yeah.
It's like when you tackle a different alphabet, you have to Google Translate. I think that even Beidou Webmaster Console is not being translated in English. So even to do a simple thing as setting up a basic thing on search on Webmaster Console, you need someone local, right? We need to hope that Google Translate will work on that page. That's where it becomes very tricky.
A friend of mine, a business owner, was talking to a client of his who was in France, and telling him how easy it was to set up a website and create stuff. And the guy said, "But HTML is in English." He's right.
yeah, but like but the same thing happens in Italy as well, right? We have people in the. I'm not very close to the Italian community at all, which is like a bit of a shame. But the reason why I also struggle is that because they translate everything, like literally, you as Bill, you're writing an article about some new stuff. Rather than linking to it, they fully translate it word per word to the point where they translate the word link, right? And and that's where you, first of all, you lose the value of like the original content, which is like probably the way you express that concept is different from the way this guy translated it. But also it it somehow skews the ability of people to be able to interact with others, right? So if you're working on the web and you don't speak English, it's like, I don't speak crystal clear English, but you need to be able to read and write. You're not going very far otherwise, right?
So the people who specialize in translation services and keyword research at the same time?
What do you mean?
If I was going to write something, I'd want to do some keyword research. So if what I wrote was translated into another language, all my research would be gone.
Mm-hmm.
All my choices of keywords. So I'm wondering how many people who do translation of websites also do keyword research.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I
hopefully
get
a lot of them. I would really question the validity of any keyword research that you get from somebody that, let's say you're doing in Italy, somebody who happens to speak fluent Italian and lives in Brooklyn. If they haven't lived there in that part of Italy, you're not going to get good keyword research. Just like you're not going to get good content, because the local colloquialisms and the manner of speaking and the cultural aspects of the writing are going to come into play in the keyword research just as much as they will in the content. I would really question the value of that.
There's a case study on the web about a Tide website. Tide created a website in the U.S. that featured a house as a metaphor. And it showed a picture of the house on the website and the common stains that you would get in different rooms of the house. Like kitchen, you would get food spilled on you. A garage, you would get motor oil maybe on you. So they decided this was doing so well in the U.S. that they would bring it to other places, and they brought it to India.
And where everybody has a garage, right?
Yeah. And everybody has a kitchen that's a multi-purpose, functional room. You do more than just cook in your kitchen. So, yeah, that didn't work too well.
I guess on the content front, definitely. That's why, like, you know, I totally get that concept. I was mainly probably just talking about all the technical stuff, right? Which there's no Italian HTML, right? And so on and so forth. But on the content, that's why we tend to even get local people to. By local people, I mean, so like we pretty much manage most of this stuff in English, but then when it comes to doing the same research, we redo that with local people, local writers, local everything. It doesn't. I still remember from one of my first job was a fashion client, and the handbag in Italy, translated as it is translated as borsa, which in Italian means stock market, even though it means handbags as well. So especially when they were doing PPC campaign, they were bidding on something in finance and they were so expensive that and like for like translations didn't do an amazing job. That's why we had to redo keyword research and all this kind of stuff. But it's a very good way also. Like recently, I had a few friends asking me, you know, I'm figuring out whether to start a company or not. And, you know, they were coming to me and asking me, oh, what should I do about SEO, these kind of things. And I told them, you know, you're starting a company, you don't even have a product, don't worry about SEO, right? But what you should do is to like do a very good keyword research, right? It doesn't matter if you won't have the budget to create content, you barely will build more than one page website, but do a good keyword research because it's a good way to understand whether there is opportunity or whether, you know, you're building a product that building something that people already search for is already a great advantage, right? It seems very obvious.
Research will be helpful in developing your information architecture for the website you build. even if you don't use it on pages.
Yeah, but even in quantifying insights on, like, when especially when you're an early stage company, you need to validate whether your product that you're building is the right one, even understanding from search demand whether this feature rather than this other feature there's got more demand or less demand, and it can help you to build something that, if you build something that people already are searching for and you have a better solution to that problem, you can already kick off by running some PPC. You can already kick off by knowing what more transactional content you could write. There's a lot of stuff that you can do easier.
If you're trying to identify who your targeted audience is for the business, you're doing the same thing for the website.
Yeah.
It's also pretty handy in the domain names.
That could be, yeah.
Well, it depends how much. I'm very puzzled. Like, it's always a never-ending subject around domain name, in terms of like how much you give away. Ability. I wouldn't talk about having any sort of exact match or things like that. I don't think these days actually so important. But just in terms of users to understand what you do as a company when you don't exist, sometimes it's really helpful. But equally, it can be so. Like, one of our two founders showed us a picture of the notebook when they first decided how to call TransferWise, and they bought a bunch of domains and they were considering different names, and there was some very very weird stuff, as in like money transfer 24, those type of things that is good on day one when you don't have a brand and you don't have a company, but then on the long run, being money transfer to Europe24.co.uk, it's like, it doesn't sound really like a very good branding idea and and exercise, right?
You sort of have to wonder about Amazon and Yahoo and the decisions to use those domains. We're gonna call the site Yahoo.
I remember reading something about Amazon on the way that they actually changed or picked that, because I'm not sure whether it's completely true, but what I remember was A being like the A letter of an index, and B, Amazon River being something that represent like something like big in terms of like flow of water, something like this. But I don't think there was a very strong, And yeah, was the hipster day of the web, where people were adding a lot of question marks and a lot of O to companies to make them sound. We could have got Google with only one O and being exactly the same. Right? and say
there was a point in time where you didn't have to pay for the domain names either. You could just ask for the ones you wanted.
Yeah.
And I remember doing a lot of type in address bar searches. What's at heaven.com? What's at hell.com?
These days are probably that domain with some kind of squatter trying to eventually hope that one company will have that name and want it to buy it, right?
Well, hell.com was an artist group. They were it could have been a lot worse.
Wow. It's a 1995 directory still left there. L.com, Buddhism, Catholic religion. Posting the link in the group. It's pretty amazing.
I haven't looked in a long time. Let's see.
It's pretty, definitely mobile friendly.
It used to have nothing to do with religion. It used to be an artist group.
Yeah, now they have some of these sponsor search links.
Definitely a cutting edge site, huh?
Oh yeah, it's right up there with that billionaire.
Oh,
One index URL.
The guy who owns Geico.
yeah, what's his face? Yeah.
Warren Buffett.
Buffett, thank you. Actually, it might be even a little bit worse than his site.
That's why, like, I don't understand these days all these people getting fussy about. So Google has been pretty clear on like how they consider domains, what domains they, even though they're like ccTLDs, they don't consider them in this way because people don't actually use them in that way, like .io, blah blah blah. I don't understand all these beyond branding, and especially because in the app world that hasn't been defined that yet. What's the point of all this domain website to push all these extensions? Like I'm not sure like how many people are gonna even though yes, most of the obvious one have been taken on .com, but there's still plenty choices. You know, if you need a new .com name, or if you need a new country level TLD. So I don't know. Like I'm not sure who buys all this. You don't see a greater adoption either, right? When you Google, you don't actually see too many of these funny ones like .london, .hotel, right, and so on.
I'm not seeing too many of those, no.
No.
But how often do you see a .travel? And that's been around for a long time.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. That like they probably managed to trick the kind of inexperienced guy that is buying a domain to see that cool, you know, your company .hotel or .travel, and they say, wow, I should get this as well, right?
Well, .travel's been around for at least 10 years or so.
Oh yeah.
It's also like quite expensive. I think that like something like a .london is, I remember it was 50 quid something. And I'm not sure how many people domains actually buy this.
I remember how much fun I had the last time I tried to come up with the domain name and make it a .com, .net, or more conventional.
Yeah, there's not a lot of them left available.
No.
But still there are. Like I disagree that like so there's not much if you go in for some, you know, obvious keyword or obvious stuff. But if you have a relatively, I don't know, it depends on how creative you are in coming up with your company name.
If you don't care about things like spelling.
There you go.
Well, probably that's an important thing if you live in a company. By the way, I misspelled my own main domain. But don't worry. Yeah.
I don't know, the most unusual domain extensions I've seen on real sites lately have been XYZ. Isn't the Alphabet website an XYZ website?
Which one?
Alphabet?
Yeah. Probably if Alphabet wouldn't have picked XYZ, no one on the web would have cared about that extension ever, right? It was like there's no one.
Not one I'd be going after, no.
How to generate hype around something with no reason.
Yeah. I think it is.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure you're right.
Yeah, that actually reminds me of I keep receiving like PayPal/credit card notification around domains, and it's so painful because they do notify you after you renewed it, not 1 week before, when you could still make that decision. So that's why you never end up like trimming your portfolio of domain, because you just oh, it's gone. Let's think about that decision next year, right?
Let me go change that so it doesn't renew automatically.
Yeah, but I have some that when you don't think about it, or otherwise you do, let's say 2 years, and then after the 2 years you don't even remember that you have it, and that's how I think it's quite I wouldn't say it's a dodgy industry, but they build all their pricing structure. Same thing with hosting, like HostGator, all these SiteGround, all these other hosting platforms. Even though they run on coupons, affiliate, at the end the coupon is basically the price that they're going to give you that month. You're not going to get any cheaper. It's quite likely that you're going to get any cheaper. And then obviously what they do, they lock you in with a 1-2 year plan with renewal, and then the renewal will cost. So you get hosting for like, I don't know, £60 a year, and then on year 3 it costs 150, 200. But then if by accident the site that is there is juicy enough not to kill it, and you don't have time to migrate to a new one, you say, okay, that's it. Like I lost 60 quid, but I'm making some, and let's keep doing it. But otherwise, there's so much waste that probably goes in there. If they would be consistent and transparent in pricing, right?
It is Alphabet is XYZ, but it's not Alphabet. It's ABC.xyz.
Oh, even geekier.
Okay, because I was wondering, because I tried to visit.
That's a proper recap of the alphabet, right?
Yep.
Very. Also, is it a one-page site?
Looks like it. You got an investors link up there.
That's
an
investor page. It's a bunch of press releases. And they have all the quarterly earnings and things like that.
In the original announcement of it, Google linked to it with a period, right, which was really odd.
Their anchor text was a period?
Their anchor text was a period.
Huh.
So I'm not sure if that would be how I would link to my new multi-billion-dollar conglomerate.
More is less, eh? Or less is more?
Yeah.
To be honest, like, that's not going to change anything, right?
They're not worried about how well Alphabet ranks in Google.
Probably not.
Actually, the less people will find it, the less press inquiries they will get, right? And it's probably a good tactic not to make it that easy to.
Yeah. It's like they worked at trying to make things harder to find. They renamed Google X to just X. I bet that was missed by most people.
I'm one.
Right. Google X is now known as X.
X.company, the Moonshot Factory.
Yeah.
See, they're getting creative with domains. Look at it.
Google Life Sciences became Verily, which
Nice
I'm not sure what that's supposed to stand for, but that's a new name.
It's also amazing how much Google doesn't care about SEO in general, like on some of their product. It's like, which is probably our bag of like being fussy about it. If it would be me, I would not sleep at night until when someone search for my company, find it on top. But if you search for X, there is a band, there is Yahoo Finance, there is, which is right, like to be honest, like is also what people want eventually. You know, is only a bunch of geeks that eventually cares about Google X rather than this rock band, even though I don't know them.
And Google has 2 health-related businesses now under the Alphabet name. There's Verily, and there's the other one, which is something like
Calico Labs.
Calico. Yeah, that's it.
Yeah, is the one about extending life, no?
Yeah.
Yeah. Hey, you know, I guess that once you get so rich, you want to make sure you live forever, and you put a couple of billion there, right? Everyone will do the same at some point, right? You tick the box, you know. Am I already one of the richest one out there? Yes. Am I going to die? Yes. Let's fix it, right?
Let's fix it. So you don't hear too much about them, though. I guess that's not a high-profile news type organization.
Also, I have not much idea, but even in the stuff, I think that even Jeff Dean in that presentation was talking about the Brain Project helping a lot of other even science project across the Google family and so on. And most of the stuff that they do like research, like medical research, and that's why there's very little probably consumer newsworthy stuff to share. It's very eventually technical stuff and like news patterns, you know, and those kind of things, right? Cool. We pass in 9. Shall we round up? Everyone's been gone quiet.
I've got people trying to have a meeting with me. Yeah, I think we need to close.
What time is it? Well, it's still afternoon for you, right?
It's 2 after, yeah.
Yeah, okay. Still time to annoy you eventually.
Yeah. Okay, why don't we go around, say goodbye, tell everybody what we're doing for next week or so. Doc?
Well, I'm going to be continuing to play with this new tool I'm trying to build. It's trying to build a nice tutorial on site security to protect against attackers. And in my spare time, I'm still playing around with site speed. I just got turned on to something by Christine Schackinger this morning, a tool I have never used before, a YSlow. I've always used GT metrics and page speed test. And I ran it this morning on a site that I consistently get like 1.2, 1.5 seconds page load. And I get a 99 score on GT metrics and an 82 on YSlow. So I'm going to dig into this YSlow tool and try to find out why. Obviously, they've all got different criteria, different weighting, but that just seemed like one heck of a lot of difference to me. So I'm going to try to learn this new tool, new to me.
Do you believe in those tools, as in like that is like a bunch of metrics that they put together, but ultimately none of them measure the speed more than what you could test yourself on your users, right?
Yeah.
That's why sometimes it's difficult to go, if you want to cut, the only way to see if there's an impact is when you test at the same time cutting versus not. Or like similar to when eBay tried to make pages lower to prove that they had to be faster, and having a 2 second, I don't know, something like that they had on like proving on actual user what was the difference. There's other bits where like this tool may show you like based on what the metrics that they build in there, but then what is the best practice. But sometimes it could be that for the user to already have content that is not formatted, styled, could be less of a worry for them in terms of like that page being safe or anything like that, than actually waiting 1 more second, or maybe you could make them bounce less. I don't know. There's a bunch of assumptions that you skip by using just those tools that show you, similar to the Google page speed, right? That doesn't tell you the speed. Like it just
no, obviously.
Gives you a bunch of best
what
practice.
I'll normally, like when I'm using GT metrics and page speed test to check out a site, what I'll normally do is I'll run 6 times with each, and rapid succession. I'll open up 6 copies of it, and I'll just go right down my tabs and go test. So I'm hitting about the same time, 6 tests on each of the 2 tools, and then I look for, normally there aren't too many disparities. But one thing that I've noticed, for instance, is a page speed test. A lot of times we'll throw an extra 2, 3, 4 seconds onto the time to first byte that GT metric doesn't. Now that may be a reflection of the way that they're serving their query. I don't know, but it's never been the other way. It's always been page speed test. It's always the one that says, oh, you got a terrible TTBF. It's 5.5 seconds. But it's just once in a blue moon. It'll hit 300 milliseconds, 170 milliseconds, 220 milliseconds, 5 seconds, on 5 consecutive tests in a 5-second period. So, yeah, I mean, I'm just looking for anomalies, things that jump out at me. But by comparing them, sometimes, one tool may have more demanding or less demanding criteria, so I'll spot something that bears a deeper look, That's why I've been spending.
I like the page speed tool because it provides lots of information on how to implement.
It does, yeah. That was the one I used the most for a long time. I started looking at GT metrics because I found that there was actually a lot of information there that wasn't obvious. That I had to just click around to find.
Isn't there basically? I think there's no stuff in there that a good developer, by opening a console on Chrome, could not find out around what loads and where, right?
Right. And we sometimes work with clients directly and have them implement changes. Okay. And we sometimes implement changes. But if we can make it easier for them to implement, we don't always know how good or how bad the developers they are.
And sometimes you find out the hard way that they weren't nearly as good as you'd hoped.
Yeah.
Okay. I guess it's a fair point. Also on agency side, you need, having additional case, making a stronger case for doing it by like a tool, right? That is somehow recognized, helps in them caring about that versus you telling them that, do this, right? You could tell them the same thing, but seeing the recommendation coming from the tool somehow validates some of it, right?
Sure.
Well, people should trust you, but it doesn't always happen. I agree. Right?
And yeah, they should, but you never quite know who you end up getting implementing stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And we end up getting a lot better results most of the time if we're the ones implementing it.
Well, yeah, and to that point, I just had a situation here about 3 weeks ago where they had an IT guy, and he was arguing behind the scenes, I found, against giving me even cPanel access. He didn't want me going in there and making the changes he wanted to do. I was okay. So I sent him some detailed instructions, and he went in and took the site down. And I immediately got a nasty phone call from the business owner that I gave him faulty, which is what, of course, the IT guy had told him. He gave me bum directions. And he should never have been allowed inside an htaccess file. So that's tricky waters.
Yeah.
Okay, we've got to
Continue.
close up. Yeah. So what are you up to next week, Fab?
This week, next, I'm mainly working on we're looking so we did a bunch of work on the content front. We started to build a team, and we're pushing out like a lot more content in a lot of regions, and it's working pretty well. Right now, it's just to measure some performance and plus measure investment in how many additional freelancer writing it, how many additional people supporting, editing, publishing some of these tasks. And it's quite, because obviously, we have to forecast future impact of content that we make and base investment based on that. So we are working on some of it, but it's quite exciting because the more you measure and you get a good sense of like future impact, the quicker you can invest in that. And time is money, right? Like creating the same content all this month versus in the next 12 months, you have more time of that content being out, ranking, picking up, and driving some performance. So it's quite crucial we nailed that piece. But it's going well. Like stuff that we did in the past year has been performing quite well. So we kind of fairly happy about it. Works, right?
That's good to hear. Yeah.
It works with scaling. Like we went from like literally publishing 5-10 blog posts a month to, I don't know, 100, 200 in 6-7 languages. We're scaling that quite aggressively. Yeah, there's more to do, right? We started from a fresh site, so there's close to infinite content that we could make. Well, if it makes sense for our business, right? We're not going to become a newspaper, but there's way more that we can produce. So I'm figuring out how to do it as fast as possible, and then we can optimize. Then we can, improve the quality, creative, all this kind of stuff. But at least we have it out and see what happens.
Mm-hmm. Terry, what are you up to next week?
Next week, probably working on some e-commerce sites, setting some PLA up, I believe. And same old, just different pile this week.
Yeah, I'm down to one site audit.
Oh, there you go.
Which is, I had a bunch of them. And I'll finish this one up and get a bunch of new ones in, I know.
Yeah. Well, that shows you're doing pretty good over there if you're getting the work steady. That's what you want.
Yeah. We're getting lots of referrals from previous clients.
Mm-hmm.
That's the best kind.
Yeah.
That's the best thing. Like something that even in the past time in agency, even though we had very corporate client, that generally is not that easy, right? That that someone of that scale refers someone else of that scale. You always go through RFP or like more structured way to pitch clients, but still we managed to get few people moving to another company and recommending us, or having friends in the same e-commerce space recommending us. Like if you do a good job, it always pays off, right? Like that's the bit that some agency miss when they try to grow, is that you need to always do a very good job. Otherwise sooner or later things will come back, and people can talk on the internet, and they can find out that you're not so good, and they can find out a lot of things. So just spending time to do a good job is probably a better investment than figuring out how to pitch more new business, because new business will come, right?
Yeah, if you're successful, people talk about it.
Exactly. Yeah.
Well, thank you, everybody. Take care. Have a good week.
Bye-bye.
See you all.